course. My name's Leon. On Instagram, I am ThePropertyEngineer. I'm a rent SA sourcer. I did an aerospace engineering degree. Got rich and retire early. What's the secret? How do we do this? I love business, so any opportunity I was chatting to someone about business or property, I wouldn't dabble in it. You need to do it. You need to go hard on it because it's a game of volume and numbers. Just get some experience actually doing the business before you jump in. Like, we put a lot of graft. It's hard. It's a hard graft. So many people in the UK, man, who just take our life for granted because we're so fucking busy. Sorry to swear, but we're so busy and we're so motivated for these things.
Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Visionation Success Stories podcast. Today, my guest with me here is Leon.
How's it going?
All good, how are you?
Awesome, mate, awesome.
Yeah, come all the way down from Wales today, is it?
That's true, mate, that's true. I mean, you've got to travel out of Wales once in a while if you want to see anyone useful.
Yeah, been around the world recently as well, so...
Yeah. I mean, I think that's it. I think I just want to keep on moving. Otherwise, I don't want to be staying at home. Yeah,
that's good. So, for the viewers that don't know who you are, mind doing a brief introduction of yourself?
Sure, of course. My name's Leon. On Instagram, I am ThePropertyEngineer. That's my alias. I'm a rent SA sourcer. I've done a flip project, mainly focusing my time around business. I did an aerospace engineering degree. I like to drop that in there, even though I don't use it at all as it is. And my business partner is also my partner. We've been together 8 years. Always like to give Libby a shout out.
Amazing. So just touching on the aerospace engineering you said you did?
Yeah.
When was that? When did you...
Graduated, not last year. It would have been 2021. So 2021, September, somewhere around that. August I finished. So 18 months ago.
Okay, so going back to that, why did you choose to do that and then go to property? Give us the backstory
Sure.
and that kind of thing.
So a lot of my decisions have been financially driven. Aerospace engineering, I thought, would make me lots of money because it's a good job. On all the websites when we were in school, it was kind of like, look, these jobs pay well. I like maths, I like design, I like kind of the engineering type stuff. Now, I tried to get an apprenticeship in it, ran up just after I finished school. My school was very much pushing me to go into uni, so it was kind of pushing me down that route. Nevertheless, I tried to get some apprenticeships. I failed, which was super sad. Went to some interviews and all that kind of stuff, and I actually didn't get in anywhere, which sucked. However, I'm so grateful that they all rejected me because it's a completely different path, the apprenticeship route, than the degree route. So, went into uni then. I enjoyed it. It was really hard, but it was a good opportunity to challenge myself and go down the math side of it. But then I took a placement year back in Wales, and that was the key moment for me that changed a lot because it gave me a lot of time freedom, which gave me an opportunity to start learning about financial education, which ultimately made all my decisions after that. But not only that, it gave me an opportunity to make and save money. And as a student, you don't really have too many opportunities to do that. So my placement year, I managed to save 10K back in the bank. So that gave me room for opportunity later on, which made a big difference for me, I'd say.
Okay. So getting into the property side of it, when did you start learning about that? So it was in your placement year, was it?
I would say, yeah, it started to touch upon it in my placement year, started to read some books, started to listen to some podcasts, and I was just trying to find out how to get rich and retire early. I was just like, well, what's the secret? How do we do this? And it wasn't work your ass off in a corporate job forever. So real estate quickly comes along when you're talking about money. Lots of people who make money are in real estate some way or another. I was introduced to the benefits of real estate through my dad almost, because he's a plumber. He's self-employed as a plumber. So I used to work on site with him a few times through some holidays and bits like that. And that would enable me to see at least what was going on in the property world. I mean, we would go to people's projects and there'd be full rip outs, there'd be refurbing it. I'd kind of ask, what's going on here? And the story was, these people have bought the house, they're refurbing it and they're going to sell it. So, I've always kind of known what's possible through property, but then started to get my own education on it and start to understand. Now, I went to one of Samuel Leeds' free crash courses kind of thing in Bristol when I was in uni. And they tried to upsell me on the course and whatnot, and I was pretty keen because they did some real good sales on me. But I called my partner. I was like, "Look, it sounds good. I know I said I wasn't going to do anything, but it sounds good." But anyway, I didn't go ahead because I was like, I said I'd come here and definitely not buy anything because I knew that they'd be trying to get me to buy stuff. So I walked away from that. Off the back of that, then I realised, okay, I'm going to invest a little bit more time into this property stuff. Let me find out what's actually going on. And at the same kind of time, I joined the 5am Club. You're aware of the 5am Club with D. Ludlow. And I started to meet real property investors, not the Samuel Leeds education side of it. People doing it like in real life, which gave me a real idea of what was possible. Mm-hmm. And then once I learned what was possible, I was like, okay, if these guys are doing this and they're making this amount of money, I think Tej was bought like 12 houses in 9 months, something like that. And I was like, that's pretty cool. Like, I'll look a bit further into this. And that's what made me pursue it as such. And as I mentioned to you earlier, I became a letting agent during my last year of uni just to get a bit of experience. Mm-hmm. And it definitely helped. I mean, it made my uni degree a little bit harder on the last year, but it gave me some experience so that I could jump into real estate full time straight out of uni. And it also just gave me experience of being a manager for property. My main role was the maintenance side of it. So we had a portfolio of 200 properties, and it was my job to inspect them all and then arrange maintenance to get it all sorted. So it gave me a good insight into the bad side of property too, because there are a lot of problems coming out.
Yeah. So you mentioned you'd done the placement year. Where was the placement year again?
So the placement year was at General Electric in Wales. It's a aircraft engine overhaul site. So essentially they bring in the engines off aircrafts, they strip them down, inspect them, repair them, clean them, put them back together kind of thing.
Yeah. Is there anything experience-wise that you learned there that you've taken in your entrepreneurship currently?
Absolutely loads, mate. One thing that, although I'm really happy with the self-employed route, one thing I know that I'm missing out on is real life big corporate experience, because I learned a lot working for them for a short period of time. As in, I learned a lot about the managerial structures, all the different departments, how meetings should be run. I learned a lot about lean operations because that was big in GE. So just in that short amount of time, I learned absolutely loads that I pulled into our own business. And I do worry sometimes that because I'm self-employed, I'm not getting that exposure from those guys who've been there. You know, General Electric's a long-standing company. There's a lot to learn from being on the inside.
Yeah, I've pretty much the same as me, man, mate. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't have that much experience in the corporate world, so it's like I know that there's a lot of processes and things that go on that can help you in like growing your business and creating a business. So it's not always the end of the world. Like working in a 9-to-5 job, it's good for the experience until then you get to the point where you want to create your business. So you must have learned still a lot even in that placement year. So that's give us an example of what kind of thing that you've implemented from there into your business now.
Sure. Well, there's loads. I mean, just to touch on, I learned loads from it. And one of the biggest things I learned was, although I really like the job, I don't want to stay in a place like that for a long period of time. So that was my biggest lesson. But generally, some of the transferable skills were people management, because that was kind of my job. I came in as a project manager in the engineering kind of department, and my role was to manage 2 shops, so 2 areas, in total around about 40 people, and they were fixing and cleaning all the machinery, which gave me the role of making sure the stuff that was coming into their shop was getting repaired on time, and then it was going out on time. So it was a lot of daily management and very much operation side of it. But the main thing that taught me was people management and how to get people to do things that you want in a mutually beneficial way, I guess, which is hard when the guys that we were, you know, I'm an intern coming in fresh, and these guys are 55-year-olds who've been doing it for 30 years. They're like, come on, mate, you're just an intern. So it was like really hard to get them to do stuff when your manager's like, this needs to be done. And they're like, nah, whatever. So being in between, it taught me a lot about leadership straight in there. But one of the other things was the management structure of it and the lean. I use lean quite a lot in our business. So lean is a project management tool, I guess, or an ideology and methodology where you do certain things to make your business better. You know, is ways in which that you make your business more efficient and therefore more profitable. So now and again, I'll look at our processes and do like an actual lean workout, as they call it, to see where the gaps are and to see how we can make more money or cut out problems that are just wasting our time.
Okay, so what does that involve, the lean process?
Yeah, lean's a lot, mate. Lean, it involves a lot. I mean, they grade it in terms of belts, so like karate or taekwondo, you know, there's like white, green, blue, all that kind of stuff. And I mean, I was like second belt by our left, and there's like 9 belts. So like, I don't have a huge amount of knowledge on it, but the general practices were just eliminate all waste. To put it simply, it was like analyze what you have in terms of your process, your staff, all the costs, all the materials involved, and then find out what you don't need and get rid of it or improve it. One of the best things about that process was standardizing the processes. So making sure whatever you do, it's the same every time. And that makes a huge difference. As I'm sure you're aware with SA management, you need processes for when things go wrong, or just generally how you operate, so that everyone in the team knows what's going on. You know that you're providing a good service. You know the outcome should get to what you predicted.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. Yeah, I've seen that firsthand myself. So in terms of going into your business, and so when you graduated, was it straight into your business? Like you said, you was doing the estate agency. So
sure.
Like, what was the process?
The transitionary period was a job. So I worked for a company called Stay BC. I reached out to their director because he was in the 5 a.m. club. Okay. And I said he was absolutely smashing it. The growth was really good. I watched him grow over the year when I was kind of on the networking group, and he was the only guy in Wales I knew at the time doing anything, you know, what I thought was pretty cool in the property space. So I reached out to him and just asked him for a job. And in all honesty, I didn't really care what job it was. I just wanted to be around that kind of person. I wanted to be in the property industry. I approached him telling him, look, I will be doing sourcing for myself. So it was kind of, he was very aware that I wasn't just coming in here for a job and I wasn't going to stay for a long time. But I stayed for around about 6 months, 8 months. So I won't go too deep into the story, but stayed about 8 months and then transitioned and moved into my own. Now, the benefit of that was that alongside the job, I was building my investor list. I was building the skill sets. I was learning everything I needed to learn to go and do it for myself. Yeah. So it was very beneficial, and I would highly, highly recommend doing something like that if someone's looking to start a business, is get some experience actually doing the business before you jump in, because there's so much to learn, isn't there, when you try something new. And if you're learning all the mistakes on your time and your money, it's quite costly. Whereas if you get to learn the process on someone else's time, on someone else's money, it works pretty well. So I took the jump to go full-time in January 22. And then my partner shortly followed me in March 22, so not too long ago. And yeah, it's worked out. I'm here. We're still going, and we're doing a lot better than we were right at the beginning, for sure.
Yeah. So like you started on is it rent to SA sourcing you started? So talk a bit about that. Like, how did you get into it, and how did you manage to like create the processes and get everything in order to the point where you are like today?
Yeah, so we actually started, my goal was to do property purchase sourcing. So I was trying to source the BRRs, the flips and the buy-to-lets. There's 2 reasons we changed. One of them, the cash flow is really slow because you have to wait till completion to pick up your money. You can take it up front, but if you spend it, then you might need to refund it, and that's not very good for cash flow. Whereas rent to SA, you can collect sourcing fees pretty damn fast. You can find a property available, and within a week you can have that sourcing fee in your bank, and you know they're not going to need it back because they've signed the contracts and we're all good to go. So the cash flow was a lot faster, which enabled me to quit my job and go full time into it. And that's very, very important at the beginning of a business, cash flow, right? Yeah. You know, I gave myself, I think it was 6 months of financial runway. So I had maybe 8 grand or so in the bank that I was happy to burn if this project didn't go well, project being the business. Obviously, I definitely didn't want to burn 8 grand just for the sake of it. So it was important that we made it work. But nonetheless, we had it aside so that I could live for 6 months or however long, and we'll be all right. So that worked. And in terms of getting the rent to SA down and making it work and building the process and model, it was definitely a lot of trial and error. We didn't really have any mentors. Now, we did have some experience from the sourcing company. We saw roughly how things were happening, but it was a bit messy because I don't believe that was their main section of the business. They did other things, so it wasn't their focus. They were doing it more just to add units to their portfolio of management. Whereas us, that's all we do. So we needed to make sure it was really good, especially because we're a new company. You need to sell a good product, a good service, otherwise no one's gonna come. So we spent a lot of time on making that process good, and no doubt the first few deals we sold, were messy. We didn't really know what we were doing. We were just trying to piece it together and make it work. But we've always used management companies to confirm figures for us. So we don't necessarily need to have the expertise to tell the investor, look, these are the rates that it's going to perform. This is the occupancy. We'll rely on the management company to give us that information. So we're kind of sources for the management companies on a contractor basis almost. We don't pay the management companies. They don't pay us. We just kind of work together to make that happen. So at the beginning, we just relied on them. And it was really helpful because if anything went wrong or if there was any questions we had, we just asked them because they've got way more experience than us. And they were willing to help because they knew that if they helped us, they get more properties on their portfolio. So we leaned on their experience. We also leaned on their credibility. We spoke about earlier, when you're approaching landlords, if you're a first-time rent SA, if you've got no properties under management, it's really hard for them to trust that you're going to be looking after their properties for 3 years. Whereas if you approach them and say, look, your property's going to be managed by this management company, they've got 5 years experience, they've got 150 properties under management, they're a bit more like, oh, okay, that this might actually work out. So we relied heavily on them, and then we just improved and adapted and just carried on increasing and improving our processes.
Okay, so you mentioned at the start for the deal sourcing, you showed the landlord, the investor, the management company that's been running for so long. But how do you create your own credibility? Like, how did you manage to do it at the start, like building a relationship and stuff? How can they trust you if you've just started? Like, how did you manage to overcome that initial phase?
Sure. Yeah, it's difficult. It's very hard starting out in a world of selling investments. It's a risky thing. People need to trust you and that you're selling the right investments. One of the ways for investors, because there's kind of three things going on here. You need to build the trust of the management companies, the investors, and the landlords. There's a lot going on, and then agents as well. So there's like 4 different subcategory businesses within this, and each one you kind of applied a slightly different technique. And I say all this with hindsight, but at the beginning, it wasn't like I had all this mapped out. We were just winging it and making it happen. But for the investors, social media, I was posting consistently for a fairly long period of time. Even when we hadn't sourced any deals, I was still trying to talk about what we were trying to do. So people were coming to me saying, hey, I've been watching you for 6 months. I want this. Can you help me out? And then I'd work with them and get involved and try and build them like that. And it's definitely difficult at the beginning to get investor trust. But if you're selling good deals, then people are going to want to work with you. Especially because there's not a huge amount of sources out there who are selling good deals. And if they're a big sourcer already and we're getting to that point, it's very hard for an investor to buy a deal from you because you're so busy. Because you send out a deal and there's 20 investors who want that same deal. You've got a 1 in 20 chance that you're going to get it as long as you say yes very quickly. So it becomes hard to deal with sources who are really big because their deals sell so fast. Right. So at the beginning, when you're working with a sourcer who's only got access to 20 investors, then you have a much better chance of actually getting a deal off them because you've got time to do due diligence and all that kind of good stuff. So there's benefits to investors working with new people. But the only thing is, and I will mention this, and I can say this now, I'm experienced. At the beginning, I would never say this. If you're working with a new sourcer, you are almost their guinea pig to what's about to happen because they may have never sourced an apartment block before. They may have never sourced a house, and they may have never done a part furnished house. That every single new deal is slightly different. And if they haven't done that type of deal, something might go wrong and they don't know what to do about it. But whereas when you're working with someone experienced, if something goes wrong, they've dealt with it before, so they know how to fix the problem. So most likely, if you're working with new sources, you will probably be a bit of a test guinea pig and you might have to deal with problems. Yeah. Then the management companies, it wasn't too hard to build credibility with them because we were already in the industry through our job. So they'd already heard about our names. We'd already been putting in the work. We'd already been in the circles. And that's another key part. Is if you're surrounding yourself with people in the industry, especially with social media, you surround yourself with the right people and you show people that you're with the right people, you just naturally build that credibility. Whereas if you don't have any social proof, any social presence, it's going to be really hard to have credibility because you're just somebody random, and I know social media is a bit strange like that, really, but it is what it is. If you've seen someone grafting for a year, and they know John, Tom, and Simon, and those guys know what they're doing, you just have some sort of trust with them, so that helps. And then with the landlords, that's hard. One of the biggest things I would say is having a solid brand, which again is hard when you're new because you don't want to invest in websites and good business cards and stuff. But having a website, as simple as it is very important. We had a lot of investors and landlords kind of come to us and say, look, I'm really impressed with your website. You know, you guys look legit, which in my honest opinion, a website's just absolute crap. Like, you can pay £500 to get a really nice looking website. It doesn't mean anything about your business, does it? It's just a website with some information on. However, it's still important and it still works. So having a website, having a brand, you know, getting your signatures on your Gmail, just getting everything consistent, maybe getting some reviews on Facebook, Google, it all just builds to it. And when they go and look for you online, you just need to come up as a brand, and then they can look into you, and as long as they don't find anything dodgy, then I think you're good to go. You're going to get a lot of rejection at the beginning, that's no doubt about it, but over time you'll get it.
Yeah, I guess that's with every kind of like strategy. So in terms of the strategies themselves, what made you go into this, and what would you say if someone's looking to get into property, why would they choose this rent to SA over other strategies? You already mentioned before about the amount of time it takes for some of the deals and stuff. But in the consensus, like what would you say?
Yeah, well, I think about this a lot because there's loads of strategies out there. I know a lot of people doing all the different strategies, so sometimes I get pulled away and I'm like, oh, maybe that one's better. I really like HMO sourcing because the fees are huge. People are charging like 30k for a sourcing fee with the project management on the side of it. Now, it takes 10 deals to get 30k for us, right? So transactionally, you do a lot of transactions to make a lot of money, but the transactions are pretty straightforward, quick and simple. So it's like, it depends. It really, really depends on your situation and where you are with it. But if you're new to property, it's a very easy property strategy to start, I would say, and mainly around the cash flow. And I would say this, if you're going to try sourcing, I wouldn't dabble in it. You need to do it. You know, you need to go hard on it because it's a game of volume and numbers and relationships. And if you're doing it 10 hours a week on the weekends, you're going to really struggle to build relationships quickly and just build enough momentum to actually start doing deal after deal after deal, unless you've already got connections with estate agents and stuff like that. Whereas you might leapfrog that a little bit. But yeah. Again, it helps with investors too, because investors come to you for rent to SA. They tend to be the lower end investors, people with 100 to 200 grand to invest. So they don't mind as much investing 10k in someone new. Whereas if you were selling them HMO conversion and you've never sourced one before, if you've only sourced two, those guys are putting in 300, 400, 500k in investment, not 10, 15k. You know, so you need more experience, you need more credibility to source the bigger strategies. Same as a land deal. I know a few land sources. And honestly, I'm not sure I would buy a deal from a land sourcer unless I was really experienced in land myself, because then they just pull you the information. Doesn't matter what due diligence they did, you do your own and find out if it's good. Whereas with Rent to SA, especially the model we do, the hands-off model, they just trust us because it's a small amount of money. It's easier to attract the investors. So yeah, I'd say it's easier. The fees are probably one of the smallest out of all the strategies. I know people doing buy-to-lets for 5-10 grand, which is awesome. Fair play to those guys, as in the sources. But yeah, it's if you don't like rejection, I wouldn't advise doing it. And if you're planning, so my best tip on this one would be whatever strategy you're planning to do, you want to do, go and source that, because you want to have everything in alignment with yourself. If you want to build a portfolio of buy-to-lets, go and source buy-to-lets so you become an expert in it. If you want loads of essays, go and source essays, same as any other one. So that would be my key point on that. Okay.
And in terms of like starting up, a lot of people mention like how much money you need. So is it a lot of capital compared to other strategies, or?
No, so rent to SA to start. In terms of sourcing, it's super low. You just need to get the compliance stuff. So it's like $1.5 grand, $2 grand at the minimum. But in terms of like buying an investment, it varies a lot. As you guys know, if you source your own property, you set it up yourself and you manage it, there's a lot of money that you can make out of that. But if you don't want anything to do with it and you pay for the sourcing, you pay for the setup and you pay for the management, it does become less profitable for you and more expensive to start. So for example, a 2-bed, which needs fully furnishing, let's say it has a deposit, it's no good deals on this one. Let's say it's around about 8 to 10k to start up. If you did all the work yourself, you could probably do it for like 4 or 5. So there's a lot of fees involved in terms of outsourcing it. But like I said, we sell most of our deals to investors who don't have time. They don't have time to go and deal with finding units. Like, we spend so much time trying to find deals. We've got the experience. So if you go and try and find them yourself, you are going to spend a lot of time getting rejections, not getting anywhere. And it's hard to find a good deal that stacks at the moment. So I think it's worth the sourcing fee. I think it's worth paying out. I would say that though, wouldn't I?
So, other than Rent to SA, what other stuff do you do in property at the moment?
So we've just about completed a flip project, which we DIY'd. I mean, we completed it a little while ago, but it's still going through the conveyancing and the sale process at the moment. I'm really hoping within the next 2 weeks we'll have an exchange, which then means that we're pretty much going to be complete, which will be lovely to get that sorted. So my idea and plan around the flip project was, 1, to make some money, but 2, to also have a home to live in after uni. So I didn't really want to move back in with parents. Just wanted to get a house and get started in property. You know, I'd done all this education. I was like, I want to get involved. Let's do it. So pretty much as soon as we finished uni, we started getting on Rightmove, going to viewings, analysing deals. Now, we were in the fortunate position that we weren't looking for a unicorn deal. You know, we weren't looking for anything amazing. We were looking for something to get experience from and to make some money. You know, we really weren't interested in like, okay, we have to make X amount, otherwise we're not doing it. We just wanted to get involved to start the process of learning. Obviously, we did need to make profit from it. We didn't want to be stupid about it. But we viewed probably not that many houses, to be fair, because I did a lot of pre-analysis to make sure that the deals were stacked before we view. But we probably viewed about 6 to 8 properties over the space of 2 to 3 months. At the time, the market was kind of creeping up quite fast, so it was quite hard to get properties because a lot of them were just kind of going fast, over asking as well. So it's hard to negotiate down with them. But we ended up buying a house that was listed for 160. We offered... Actually, when we first viewed it, we were like, 160 is way too much. It needs loads of work, no chance. A month later, it came back on with a reduced rate at 150. So we were like, okay, let's go and have another look at it. Because we didn't even take a video, which was so stupid. Took a video of all the other ones, but we couldn't remember. So we were like, let's go back there, do another view and see how much work it needs. I mean, we didn't have a huge amount of experience in terms of pricing, but we had some for the refurb stuff. And I was connected with some builders, so they helped me out in terms of pricing it. It was a bit different because we were DIYing it as well. The builders don't really know entirely the price of like the DIY, but materials only. Then we managed to negotiate it to 141. So off the first number we seen, we dropped about 19k off it, which at the time we were pretty damn happy with because, like I said, it was hard to get prices down. And then we pretty much moved in within a week, mate. And if anyone's seen any photos of it, like we moved into a bad house, like a 1970s decorated house, which is just awful. Mold on the walls, like wallpaper peeling off. But like we got the keys to the house and we were deciding, look, do we want to move into it yet? Or do we want to like sort it out first and then move in? I was just so keen to get in there, mate. I want to get in the house, mainly just because I wanted to get started with the work. And I thought if I'm going to be traveling back and forth to come here, do the refurb, I'm going to be wasting a lot of time in commute, just moving back and forth to get it done. We were lucky that one of the rooms was decent. It had okay carpet, the walls were all right. The only things we ended up doing with that was changing the carpets and painting the room. So that room was okay. So we kind of just lived in there and then refurbed the rest of it as we went. I mean, there's so much to talk about in that house. Is there any specific things you want me to say?
In terms of the refurb, so like you meant like DIYs and like, so a lot of it you done yourself, or you like had the builders? Or?
Yeah, so the majority we did ourselves. So the only thing we outsourced was the electrics, which we still did a lot of the electrics ourselves. Libby's dad, my partner's dad, is an electrician. So like he made us do a lot of the stuff he knew we could do, and then he would just come in and do the bits that he needs to do, and then he'll sign it off. Like we ran all the cables, we chased all the walls, and we even did a few of the sockets and stuff like that. So we were involved there. And again, luckily, my dad's a plumber, so as I mentioned earlier. So we were having a lot of phone calls with our dads, like, what's going on here? How do we fix this? What should we do? I mean, they're not expert builders, but they were able to give us a guide of what we should do. So they helped us. And then the only other thing we outsourced was a plasterer, and The plasterer was a nightmare, did like 50% of the job. We paid him probably like 70% of the money, and then he just disappeared. Got another plasterer in who could only do like 1 or 2 walls because he was too slammed. He did his part, and there was still loads of plastering to do. So I learned how to plaster, and then I finished off the plastering, and that was horrible. But again, I enjoyed the process of learning the new skills. I enjoyed building and creating. Some of the finishes weren't great, but it just meant more time in terms of like going back in and filling it, and like more snagging of your own, which we worked out. So yeah, we did a lot, mate. It was pretty much a full rip out, new kitchen, new bathroom. We ripped out, upstairs, we split a bedroom into a bathroom and a bedroom. So we put a stud wall up. We did all that ourselves, built like all the door frames and whatnot. A lot of work, full rewire. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a lot of trial and error. How long did that take from when you got it?
Full refurbishment process was 9 months, I'd say. Okay. 9 months. And alongside that, obviously, we were trying to build a business and trying to grow it.
Not too bad, yeah.
It's not too bad, mate. No, it's not. But like, we put a lot of graft in, like a lot.
Considering you've done it, you're like
It was so much time. It was like mornings, nights, because what we ended up doing was treating our business like a 9-5. So we'd log in at 9 o'clock and then try and log off at 5 because we needed to work on the house as well. Yeah. So we had to try and create boundaries.
So yeah, it seems like there was a lot of trial and error involved in that refurb. And obviously you was working towards the deadline, so it kind of pushed you towards it because you wanted to go on your little trip away, which we'll touch on. However, in terms of the refurb itself, so that kind of like you learning about everything that's going on and the refurb from start to finish, it gives you a lot of experience into how it goes. So then maybe like when you want to do a flip, like you'll know exactly what you need. So when like you mentioned the plasterer and stuff, like if he comes and there's like some dodgy plasterer, like you know exactly what he's talking about and you'll know exactly what you need, and he'll be able to see right through him if he's like bullshitting you or whatever. So that's like kind of good experience for you gained.
Yeah, of course, mate. That's part of the reason we did it. We just wanted the experience in it because we knew that we're going to do this multiple times, whether it be refurbing to keep it as a rental or flipping more projects in the future. I mean, one of the main reasons we did it ourselves is to save money. Rather than spending 30-40k on a refurb, we spent like 15k. And it really is like double, if not triple, to outsource it to a builder. So it enabled us to pick a house that didn't need to have insanely good profit margins because we were able to increase that profit margin by doing the work ourselves. However, the added benefits of it, like you said, we get to learn the processes inside and out from a very personal perspective because I'm literally putting in every screw, I'm hitting out every brick, I'm doing it. Yeah. So I understand the process and I understand what needs to be done. We also got to understand what's a good, bad and okay finish because we did them all. Some of the finishes that we did weren't great. So that now we know that when a builder or a plasterer or a painter comes and does a job, we all understand if it's a good job or not. And, at the beginning, it's very hard to understand all that because you don't really have much frame of reference. You don't really have any education on it. We didn't do any courses on how to DIY a house. We learned via bits of YouTube. My dad got me this book, which I might have opened once or twice, but it wasn't very, I don't really want to read DIY stuff out of a book. Every situation with refurbishment is very individual, and unless you've been doing something for a long time, you're not really going to know each way to solve something. When we come across a problem, I would ring at the builder that we knew, my dad, Libby's dad, and even then they wouldn't have the answers. They didn't necessarily know what to do, so a lot of it was just trial and error and just try and make it work. And generally, mate, I'm really happy with the finish of the property, seeming that we had pretty much no experience. My partner has little to no experience in DIY. I have a very small amount. I did design tech in school, so I know how to chop a piece of wood kind of thing, but that's about it. But yeah, it was. I'd say it was worth it. Never again, though. Not again.
Yeah, time you'll be able to outsource and
yes,
you'll know exactly what's going on. So, in terms of, you mentioned that you was working towards going on this trip. So obviously, I've seen on your social media when you went on it.
Yeah.
In terms of that, like, what was your goal with that? In terms of like the managing the business, like abroad and stuff. So talk me through a bit of that.
Sure. So I'll just touch on one thing first, and it's quite strange. We used to ask ourselves a lot, like, why are we going on this trip? And as simple as the answer is, obviously, it's a great thing to do. Yeah. Everything in my life has kind of been, especially the last few years, of like, why are we doing this? Does it work towards our goals and stuff? And going away traveling kind of veers us away from the goal of building wealth and building a property portfolio. So it was a bit of a conflict in our heads. But our goal for when we went away to manage the business was essentially, let's nurture our relationships. Let's just keep the business alive so it looks like it's still running. And then when we get back, we'll be able to just pick it up nicely and then carry on from there. But what actually happened was we got a hell of a lot more deals than we anticipated, which was both good and bad to some extent. It was great because we made loads of money and that enabled us to pay for the whole trip whilst being away. But it was bad because we had extra workload that we needed to do whilst we were away. So it's that balance, right? But we're lucky that we were able to do, because we systemized it, we have BAs, we were able to do less work, way less work than what we do at home, especially because a lot of the work we do at home is stuff that we're trying to do to grow the business. Whereas when we were there, we were just maintaining. We were just doing the incoming leads. So we weren't necessarily doing much outbound lead generation. We were just letting them come to us. So because we built relationships with landlords and agents, they would just come to us, say, hey, we've got this property. Do you want it? And then we'll send someone to go view it. We'll review all the videos. We'll speak to a management company and follow the same process. And yeah, it just worked out really well, mate. We definitely do it again. I mean, because we were so unsure of like, is this going to even make money? Are we going to be able to do this? Like, we had no idea, and we didn't really know anyone at the time who was doing this kind of thing, especially sourcing. You would imagine that sourcing needs to be like, you need to be in the country to do it, unless you've got UK-based staff running around doing your work for you. But it worked. We proved the model, and yeah, you can source remotely, especially around SA.
Did you have like, you mentioned you had some like running around and stuff. So like, did you have just like a couple of people, or just like one person, or like how did that work logistically? Like,
so in terms of on ground staff, we didn't have any like paid on ground staff. We've got one person who does our sales calls based in Northern Ireland, so that's no good for any properties that we're doing in Wales. And then the virtual assistants were out with us in the Philippines. So in terms of on ground, we relied on our contacts via our management companies and other sources and investors, and even sometimes friends, to go and do stuff for us. So if we needed something done, we have people in the UK that we know that we just asked to do, and we just pay them handsomely. One time I paid my friends 50 quid to go pick up a key and drop it off somewhere. You know, it was just like, just please, you know, just go and do it.
Okay. So when you were in the like, when you was abroad, so you mentioned Philippines as well. What other countries did you
so we did Malaysia, Indonesia, Borneo, which is based in Malaysia again, Philippines, Vietnam, and Thailand. I think
like East Asia. Like
yeah.
So in terms of that, what was like the best or like most interesting experience that you had that you really took like some value from that you've never seen before, like maybe like over here or something?
Sure. Well, there's so many things that happened out there, mate. It's really hard to pick it down, but something that sticks to me that I want to do a lot more was scuba diving. Like, we started doing a lot of scuba diving out there, and we got our advanced qualifications, and we spent a lot of money on it because it was just so good. And in the last month of traveling, we weren't really sure what country we wanted to go to. We kind of hadn't planned that far, and we chose Thailand because we'd been there before and we just absolutely loved it. And we also chose Thailand because it's got really good scuba diving. So we went on a liveaboard trip, which basically means you live on the boat for a few days. So we went and lived on the boat for 3 days, and it was like wake up, sunrise, dive, eat, dive, eat, dive, eat. Like, it was just really cool. Sit on the top, just sunbathe in between dives. Like, it was really nice. You know, a good bunch of people which we're just speaking to and getting on with. And the diving community is usually filled with really sound people. It's a very nice community, and one of the coolest things I got from those trips were speaking to the other people. You know, people from all around the world. We met this amazing guy from Israel who was really successful through like a restaurant business, and just learned so much from him about his culture, his religion, like the country, but also about business too. And you know, I love business, so any opportunity I was chatting to someone about business or property kind of thing, trying to build it in. We met like wealth managers and all sorts of interesting people out there. So scuba diving would probably be the one that I'd say is the best thing that came out of it. And then alongside that would be the cities, because the cities are always so cool. Like the capital cities of each country were just fascinating. One of them being Singapore. If anyone's been to Singapore, they'll know it's a bloody cool city. There's so much money in that city through the development that is just really nice to see. But then on the other side of it, you go to cities that really don't have much money, like one of the cities in the Philippines, the capital, Manila, that really does not have a huge amount of money, and it really gives you insight into how the other world live. There was certainly a fair bit of poverty there, and it just, really, really different mindset shift to how we live in the UK here. It was made us very grateful for what we have in this country, and it also made me kind of annoyed about the people who aren't very grateful who live in this country, because there's so many people in the UK, man, who just take our life for granted, and it's really easy to live here. You know, you can get whatever you want on credit, finance. Like we were saying earlier on the other podcast, saying the guy said, if you're happy with a basic life, you don't even need to have a job. The government will just support you on like a really low salary, which is just mad. You know, they don't have that in those countries. If you don't work, you don't earn money, and you get sick and you die. You know, it's like, it is brutal out there. So having that perspective definitely helped to build myself, I would say.
Yeah, it opens your eyes, because the work ethic is like completely different. And obviously, as you know, having the VAs and also VAs, like you can see like the difference of hiring VAs and, you know, hiring someone here, which is mentioned like a million times already on this podcast. With all the guests I've got on, but it's just true, like you know what I mean. So that's quite interesting. I think it's quite beneficial for people from the West to go over into these countries to see how people are living and how their lives are so much drastically different than ours over here in the West. So in terms of that scuba diving that I think you said about the boat, and you were like 2 or 3 days on the boat. Yeah. So how did you manage your business then? Did you not have? I'm assuming you didn't have like a signal or something out on the sea.
Yeah, that was scary, man, because like we were doing research on it, and it was like, look, like you're probably gonna lose signal for like 2 days or so. And I was like, that's not good. You know, like how am I gonna do this without signal? So we did a few things to mitigate how much we're gonna need to be on our phone. We did the trip over a weekend, so that like we'd try and, I think we went on the Thursday night and came back on like the Sunday, something like that, or the Monday. So over the weekend, typically we don't have as much work, because luckily sourcing is almost a Monday to Friday job, because you're working with agents and landlords and stuff, and it's kind of in the property industry, which like letting agents, they're not open all the time. So we got a little bit there where we don't have to. We tried to wrap everything up as much as possible, things that were happening. And yeah, it happened. We were out there, and like 3 hours into the boat ride out to the middle of the ocean, the signal just stopped, you know. And at the time we were going through, our sales guy just got a lead, and it was like actually going to be a deal, and he was like, look, I need your help closing this right now. And we were like, oh my god. So we were trying to send messages, and we were just watching our phone, just like the WhatsApp little square just not sending, and we're like, no, because there's like $3,000 on the line there, and getting our sales guy commission. But luckily it just popped a tick, and like we kind of said, look, we're probably going to lose signal right now, do this and this, we'll be back with you on Monday. And yeah, that's what happened. And we just went radio silent for a bit. It was really nice, mate, like to not get any notifications and know that you can't message anyone.
How was that in terms of, obviously you'll basically have no like digital interactions at that point, when you're just literally out on the ocean and just diving, eating, like being at one with like the nature basically, and not, how was that like being like digitally switched off for like a couple of days and then coming back into it? I mean, you must have felt like rejuvenated.
Yeah, man, definitely. You know, if anyone follows me, I'm very active on social media. You know, I'm posting stories all the time, I'm posting reels. So, you know, there was no content that came out over that period of time. We didn't have like any signal, so like nothing would load. You know, you couldn't scroll through Instagram, you couldn't really do anything. You know, all you could do is, if you wanted to, you go on your photos and look at your photos. That's all you could do. But we were in a beautiful part of the ocean with like islands dotted around, and like really nice food, loads of cool people on the boat. So there was lots of reasons to not even need your phone anyway. And I just can't think of many opportunities that you get where you're put in that experience where like you can't do anything on your phone. So it's not even like self-control, you can't activate it. So I would, I mean, I love to scuba diving, mate, and like I think about it so often now. Being back in the UK, it's almost one of the things that makes me think like, maybe you shouldn't have come home because it was just so good.
Okay, yeah, scuba diving. Yeah, I've done scuba diving quite a few times as well. It's
Yeah?
really, yeah,
Sick.
I've done that. You mentioned about you get like some certification. I think I've done like the level 1.
Nice, the open water or something. Yeah.
Yeah, something like 30 meters or something. But
Yeah.
that's like a really cool experience.
Yeah.
It's like something that's really fun, and it's, I don't know, I just really enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming you feel the same way, and it's just something that you look forward to when you want to like go back.
Yeah.
And obviously there's a lot of different countries that you can do that in. So, you know.
Yeah, we did a few. I think we scuba dived in 3 countries in total. One of the coolest ones, mate, which I'd recommend if you haven't done it already, was wreck dives. So we went to the Philippines and dived in loads of World War II wrecks. So like loads of oil tankers, gunships and stuff like that had sank in the war, and they're at about 25, 30 meters deep. So you can go down and they let you swim through them. And we were literally like swimming through the hallways of the boat, kind of just going through all of the bits. It was just absolutely mind blowing to be in there. Kind of at one point we were in one of the oil rig, big like storage tankers, and just in this massive crate 25 meters deep in the water. It was really cool. As you can tell, I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, it's quite interesting to see that as well. And like obviously with the scuba diving instructors and stuff, like that's like their livelihood, that's what they do for a living, and it's so completely different to what we do here. But
so different.
That's like, you know, you don't even probably need that much like money out of there in that sense as well. But it's like, as long as like they're probably like really happy, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they're all really happy.
Like, it's pretty amazing.
They're probably down there right now in the ocean swimming around. It's just mental, swimming with sharks and stuff. Like what a life, you know. A lot of the people you met out there were older, maybe like midlife crisis kind of things. You know, they've just sacked off their job and been like, I want to become a dive instructor and been out there. But they're all so happy. They're all so chilled. They all love the life that they're living out there. And it's definitely something to take note of, you know, and just be like, look, they're doing something that makes them happy, even though they don't have loads of money. They're not driving a car because they live on an island. You know, they're just living in a little house, living really humbly, and they're just really happy. And it's nice to see, because you don't see much of it in the UK, not at all.
Yeah. I guess that gives you a lot of like time for like self-development as well, stuff like being away from like the digital stuff and, you know, the cars, the houses, and stuff like that. When you're just living, as you mentioned,
the rat race,
living so humbly. Like it's like a completely different world, and that's just quite very interesting to me. And you know, it'd be good to experience that one day maybe.
I would definitely recommend it, man. Like the next place we're gonna go is to Egypt, because all the divers are like, look, the dive spots in Egypt are awesome. It's a little bit closer to home as well, so you don't have to do a 16-hour flight and then another 6-hour flight or so to try and get to the dive spot. So yeah, we'll be going there as soon as possible.
Yeah,
I think
I've been scuba diving in 2 places. So in Turkey,
cool.
Marmaris, which is really nice. That's where I got the certification. And the first time I done diving was in Jordan.
Okay.
So it's like a little, I think it's.
I didn't know you could dive in Jordan.
Yeah, in Jordan, Aqaba, the place is called. It's like right next to the desert as well.
Yeah.
You don't actually get to stay in the desert, but that was something that I was intending on doing. Like that's like similar to what you did, like staying on the boat. It's like you'd be out in the desert, probably not going to have much signal.
Under the stars and stuff.
Under the stars, like for 2 days. It's like living like you're a desert traveler.
Yeah.
Like,
it's beauty.
That's quite an experience that I really want to do. I haven't done yet. But yeah, in that town, we done the scuba diving, and it was really nice. Like
cool.
That was my first time doing it, and I was like, wow. That's when I was like, I want to do it again. I was just being really fascinated. So yeah, maybe one day when I go to Asia, like them kind of sides, do it around there. But definitely if you're in Jordan and Turkey.
But Jordan's definitely somewhere I want to go, and we were actually thinking about going to Jordan on our way home from traveling, because like I said, we had so much choice, because we were making money out there that was paying for our life whilst we were there, as well as paying our home expenses. We could have just carried on as long as we wanted, but that was mainly because we were in very cheap countries. You know, our living expenses were very low, even though we were doing all the scuba diving, doing activities all the time. We were definitely more than just living. You know, we were going out and like doing activities, whereas if you're doing it here, it cost you an absolute fortune to do activities every day. But nevertheless, we were only spending like $1.5 a month each, so about $3,000 in total to go out and have a great life like out there, which is amazing. And then we only had about £500 each of monthly expenses at home that we needed to cover, so we didn't need to make a huge amount of money to just live out there forever. It was really cool.
Okay, is that something that you like want to aim towards, where you're just like remotely managing a business, or even just retiring early? You mentioned that you're looking for ways, like every entrepreneur is like looking to retire early. Is that something that you would do? Like, is that your like goals or vision for like the future, when you want to like retire and then maybe like go to these countries and exploring and stuff?
I mean, it's quite strange because, like, as I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, I wanted to retire early. That was the goal. But now what I'm doing now, where I feel like I'm already retired because I'm working for myself and I'm not, I enjoy what I do. I'm just quite free. You know, I can go and explore different opportunities. Obviously, I still need to do what we need to do in the business. But there's lots of time freedom, lots of choice freedom, which I kind of feel like I'm already semi-retired in a way that I have the freedom. And that was the goal. I just didn't really realize that that was the goal at the time. But in terms of traveling, something that me and my partner want to do is make sure that whatever we do in the future, we can continue doing things like that. But we'd probably shorten the time of being away, because 4 months to me was a little bit too long. I wanted to come home to work, you know, and I know that sounds probably crazy to some people, but like I was eager to come home, to come back to building again and get into the routines. Like there's things I missed, you know. There's a lot you can do out there to replace your routine. You know, there's gyms out there. There's everything you need to build the routine that you would have at home, but it's just completely different. And I like the routine that we do at home. So I think what we'd do next time is shorten it to maybe 2.5 months and do like 3 countries at a time and do that once a year, maybe twice a year, so that you're still in the mix of it. But yeah, any business that we take on going forward, we always want to make sure that we're going to be able to do it remotely.
Yeah, I guess it's about your desire to want to keep working and keep being successful, and there's no like end limit to that. You just keep going, and I guess that was just your hunger and passion to just come back. Otherwise, you could easily want to go somewhere, and then you could easily like just try and live off whatever you're doing right now. You don't have to come back. Like you could just stay there forever if you really wanted to. Yeah. So I mean, that's just shows like the hunger and desire for you to come back and want to grow your business even further, and then still do these trips going out again. So what I want to touch on in terms of, you said obviously you went with your partner Libby. Yeah. How has that been in the business working with your partner? Because that's something that interests me, of course. Yeah. It's a lot of people don't like that. A lot of people do. Like, what's been like the difficult situation, and what's worked well in terms of that dynamic in the business and in the relationship?
So I've been with my partner 8 years, coming up to 9 years this year. Yeah. And bearing in mind I'm 24, so we've been together like our whole lives, like our whole adult lives, even the majority of our teenage lives we've been together. So we've continually grown together in life. You know, we have literally grown into the people we are with each other, which is quite a strange experience in itself. We went to separate unis, so we've had opportunities to be separate, but we've always wanted to move back in together and live together again. So I'm very fortunate that I have a partner who, one, we have a great relationship and I really like, and two, we can go into business together, because I see it a lot. Entrepreneurs really struggle to find a good partner because we're so fucking busy. Sorry to swear, but we're so busy and we're so motivated for these things that it's not the normal thing to do. So when you meet a girl who's more normal and does the normal society things, it doesn't always work because they don't understand it. Whereas I've managed to what's a nice way of saying this? I've managed to work with Libby to build a vision and build a dream together, where like this is the kind of lifestyle that we'll live. And it just so happened that it kind of paid off. You know, I built the vision that like, if we do the work and if we buy properties, if we do this, we can create this life of freedom and do all these things. And in a very short space of time, we've kind of proven that model. And now that she's in it, she very much believes and she very much likes this lifestyle. So it's easy for us to carry on and doing this thing, which I appreciate is not easy for everyone. If your partner doesn't want to do this kind of thing, don't force them, because they're probably going to be unhappy maybe living that life. You know, build on it, keep working on it, because it might take more time to get them involved. But first, I recommend proving the model, whatever kind of crazy vision that you've got out there. Prove that it works, prove that you can make a load of money and that you can have more freedom, you can go on more holidays. What do they like? If they like going out for meals, show them that you can go out for more meals if you have that kind of thing. So build that. But in terms of what works well for us, one, we don't really argue, like very, very rarely that we'd argue. I would almost like to say we don't, you know, we have disagreements and then we talk about it. That's something that's really important for us, is that if we disagree, I won't like hold it inside me and like take it out in another way. I'll just talk to her and be like, look, like this is why I don't agree. Listen to her, understand her opinion, maybe change my perspective on it. You know, I'm very open-minded. I'll always hear it out, and we end up coming to an agreement. We don't really like disagree and then try and plow on. We'll always come to an agreement and then move on. I mean, it's not always that simple, of course. Like in business, we have different opinions around different things, but we just keep talking about it, keep understanding each other's opinions, and eventually come to an agreement on something, whether it's a compromise or it never. I don't like the word compromise. Compromise normally means that someone's losing out, right? It's not like that. It's more like we've just worked together to get to understand each other's opinion and come to like a mutual decision or a mutual agreement on that opinion, which is, it's quite special to have. And one of the other benefits is that we've got different skill sets. So I like talking on camera. I like presenting myself on social media. I'm very good with numbers and I'm quite a problem solving person. Whereas Libby is very good at speaking to landlords and very good at getting them on board. She's very good at the lead generation side. She's very good at the admin, and she came from a legal background, so she has that kind of skill set. So we're kind of like a lawyer and engineer. They are different skill sets, and coming together, it has worked out very well. I mean, a little bit of luck. I didn't plan this when we first got together. It just kind of merged into it over time. Quick little story, really. I was meant to start property sourcing with a friend, and then when it came to actually committing financially to the compliance and bits like that, they didn't really want to be involved anymore. But by that point, I already put quite a lot of time in, so I was like, I want to do this. I didn't have enough money to pay for it all myself, so I asked my partner, do you want to split it with me? She was like, yeah, sure. And then that just made us become business partners, and then we're like, right, we're doing this. Okay. But we were worried about it because we were like, what if this business damages the relationship? Because it's a very different dynamic to working together or having a business. Is very, very different.
Yeah. At that point where you said she came into the business, was it that she was already sold on that vision? Like, did she want, or was it like just happen and then you just realize that, okay, I'm here now and that that's something I really enjoy?
Well, I mean, the long-term vision, I got her sold on, the long-term vision of like, look, when we're 40, 50, we'll have this passive income, we'll have properties and stuff, and we'll have this freedom that it's going to give us a good life. But the short-term vision of the sourcing, no, because I didn't even know what the vision was. I couldn't see it because I didn't know enough people doing it. I didn't know what was possible. So it's hard to sell someone on something that you don't know. But she kind of, she had the money aside. So I think she kind of just said yes because she believed that I could do it, and she was just kind of like, look, like, have the money, you obviously really want to do it, let's do it. But the first 6 months where we were doing it for a job, whilst we were in a job and kind of doing it on the side, she didn't really do too much. She helped me with a few branding decisions and bits like that, but I was doing all of the investor side alongside it, whereas she was focused on her job. So at the beginning she wasn't doing a huge amount. However, as soon as she went full time with Think Big, it made an absolutely massive difference, because she is a very good worker. She's very, very good, very productive. She doesn't get procrastination like me. She just cracks on, and I admire that from her, because I definitely don't have that at times.
Yeah, that's quite interesting as well, because in terms of having that person with you that's going towards the same goal as you, is sometimes when you get into a rut, you might feel like down, stuff like that. You'll see, like you just mentioned, she's like very hardworking and stuff. You might see that, and that might motivate you, rather than when you're entrepreneur on your own, you can get very lonely.
Yeah.
So obviously it's about getting the right person, because if you have the wrong person, then you're going to do the opposite way.
Worst, yeah.
But would you say that it's definitely a lot more beneficial to have someone that's sharing the same vision as you, rather than being like a one-man team, like a lone wolf?
Yeah, I would say so many more benefits to being in a partnership with someone, even if it's a business partner, not related. But there's also loads of negatives that come with it too. Being a solo entrepreneur, it works quite well because you've got complete freedom of choice, and you haven't really got anyone to disagree with you, which is a negative in itself. But if you can find a business partner who genuinely believes in the same vision, they want to do the same thing, and you work well together, you can do twice as much work. And although you've got to split the profit, you grow faster if two of you are working on it. Whereas if one of you's working on it, there's so much to do in a business that it's just not possible to grow fast on your own, is it? You'd have to outsource to staff, and you don't have to pay your business partner. That's the best part, right? I didn't have to pay her a salary until we started making profit. Whereas if you wanted to bring on someone who was experienced and motivated, you'd probably need to pay them or give them an equity share, which they would essentially become a business partner at that point. So yeah, use your partners for free labor. So something me and Libby used to do was at the beginning when we were doing our sales calls or the cold calls, we used to take it in turns to do the calls, because if anyone's done like a high volume of sales calls which have high or low conversion is in a lot of rejection, it's not very nice, especially when you're doing it from home and you're not in a sales environment. So we tried to create a sales environment at home by taking it in turns to do sales calls. So I'd ring, get slammed, get told to fuck off, and then she'd ring, and then we'd just go back and forth and almost treat it like a competition. We set like targets and KPIs between each other of like who could get the most viewings or who could get the most like landlords on board and bits like that. So that was fun. I mean, one of my tips if you're going to have a business partner is to not do the same roles, especially after a few months of business. And that's something we learned from our mentors, is that have very defined roles and make sure that the business is quite streamlined. So at one point it was kind of Libby does something, then I have to, then Libby, then I have to, and it made it quite frictionful. Whereas what we changed it to was Libby does the first half, I do the second half, so that she can do all of that, pass it on to me, then I do it and it's done. Rather than bouncing back and forth all the time, it just created a lot of friction in terms of communication.
Yeah, I guess it's playing to your weaknesses as well. Like you might have a weakness and that might be her strength, and vice versa. So it can work going towards the main goal. Yeah. But yeah, that's very, very insightful, and personally for me as well, I found that quite interesting. And whoever guest I have on, if they have a partner that's been in the business, I find that quite interesting because it's really beneficial to understand, because that's a lot of entrepreneurs, they struggle with that, as you mentioned. They struggle with having a partner, even like a business partner, not like a non-relationship. But the last thing I wanted to discuss was social media. Sure. So obviously you had the few days on the boat where you wasn't on anything, and then you come back to it and you're on the social media, and I know you post a lot of content. You touched on it before where you said like your brand is like on social media, or like just in general out there for people to see, because if it wasn't, then you know what I mean, like
no one would know me.
No one would know you, and it's not a lot of credibility. So in terms of that, have you found that you got a lot of business through your social media? Is it like quite a substantial amount, or like you've definitely motivated you to do more and like content creation and stuff like that?
If I don't grow my profile, the business is not going to grow. It will go so slowly. So it's still possible to grow a little bit because there's other things we can do. But in order to attract investors to us, Instagram has proven the best thing to do. We don't even do anything else. We just do Instagram. All I do is post those reels and people come to me wanting to work. So that's how we do it. It worked at the very beginning to get my first investors, and it still works now on a much bigger scale. So in order to get to the number of deals that we want to get to a month, I know that I have to get to a certain amount of followers to match that and to make sure we have enough investors coming through to make it work. So yes, it's very important to me, and that's why I post a lot. I would say that more than 95% of the deals that we've sold have gone to investors I've met on Instagram.
Oh wow, that's
mental, mate. And the other 5% is I've still connected with them on Instagram, but I may have met them at a networking event, and that's just the crazy part. Like all of them have been through Instagram.
Okay, wow, yeah, because I see your content a lot, and it's quite something that I wanna push towards as well. Like your content is very unique and quite
very unique.
Yeah, so that's amazing. And it's not like you've learned that anyway. You just started it yourself, and you just, winged it, just doing the social media. And that's probably quite an interesting tip for people that are starting off. Like, what would you recommend in them in terms of their social media, how to like grow it, and the engagement and stuff like that? What would you?
It's hard. It's a hard graft. I've been doing it for, I think the profile is like 2 years old, and I've got like 3,500 followers, which to some people sounds like a lot. To me, it sounds like hardly any, because I'm constantly looking up to other people who have way more. So it's very hard to build a profile from scratch, especially if you don't have any credibility. If you've got credibility already, you can grow an account so much faster. And when I'm talking about credibility, I mean, if you're in the property space, if you've already sourced 100 deals or you have 20 developments going on, you're going to be able to grow your account much faster because people actually want to consume your content. Whereas if you're just starting out, why would you bother following this person? They're not very experienced. And that's my position. I started the page before I'd sourced a single deal. And it's hard to come up with that stuff that's valuable because you don't know anything. Like you're at the beginning. But my top tips on that is just start, for one. Just literally open up the account and start. Have a plan for it, in the means that if you hate posting on social media and you don't think there's a chance of you becoming someone who actually enjoys posting and sharing content, it's going to be really hard for you. And I'd probably recommend looking at outsourcing options or other means to creating whatever you're trying to create, because it takes a lot of time and there's a lot of frustrations around it. And if you don't enjoy sharing or creating content, I think it'll be more of a pain than it is a benefit. And that's something that I'm lucky around, is that I had no experience in design or graphics or video editing or anything like that. Like I said, I started on Canva. You scroll all the way back, some of them are pretty bad. At the time I thought they were awesome, but like some of them are pretty bad. I got better, and then I moved on to the Reels, because that's what I'd recommend doing. Short form video content is where it needs to be. If you're not doing that, then you're really missing out on a lot of attention, which ultimately is why you're on social media, is to gain that attention so that it can turn into something. So practice, take loads of videos of yourself, get on the camera and film yourself. Even if you're not going to post them, just do it anyway for the practice. You see me doing a video like this, trying to talk to it and explain something. It's taken a lot of videos to get to the point where I'm confident to just speak and explain something. And I would say it helps overall with your general confidence and public speaking ability, because you get to learn how to communicate your thoughts and ideas better. If you don't share anything like that, you rarely get the opportunity to have that conversation and explain your ideas, where it's almost like every reel is like a pitch. Every reel is like trying to explain something in a succinct way where it'll work for someone, and you have to change your communication process to make it good. So my other tips would be to collaborate. That's one of the best things that's happened and helped me, is to work with other guys who are at the same level or higher, tag them in stuff and like make it look like you're all connected, because then if someone sees you associated with someone, they think, okay, he's worth following, I'll drop him a follow. And that's just the way the world works, isn't it? I position myself around some guys who have a lot of followers, and I share a lot of their content. I give them a lot of shout outs and stuff like that. And they're genuine shout outs. I'm not just doing it for the attention. A lot of these guys have given me a lot of value, and I just want to say thank you. But just do it on social media and give them a tag. 9 times out of 10, they'll repost you. And rather than your story being seen by 100 people, you're now getting seen by 1,000 people. And that's some really great exposure just by saying thank you to someone. It's like a win-win for everyone involved there.
Yeah, 100%, definitely. But yeah, I think that brings us to the end of the episode. You've been an amazing guest with us today. I've learned a lot of information and a lot of knowledge gained from you. But yeah, thank you for coming down. Appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you very much. What a beautiful place to do it. See the sunset just dropping over there. It's amazing.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you anyway. Thank you guys for listening. Be sure to subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Give us a follow on our Instagram. Also check out Leon's Instagram page. I will put it in the description below. But yeah, if you have any questions, if you want to do deal sourcing for Rent to SA, Leon is definitely your man to go through. So I'll put his details below. So be sure to check him out. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.